the one piece we should be looking at the next match that's coming back through. Like you mentioned earlier, we had round 9 and 10 ready to go, so let's go ahead and get some more gameplay going and see that round 10 now.
Yep, so we just saw round 9 where Mihawk was able to claim victory, and here it is, Steel once again. Can he continue the Mihawk luck against the ace that we were talking about? Finally time to see it. We see Shane starting off, denying Mihawk that one-cost curve that we saw, that odd curve that we saw him dominate with in the previous round. Beginning with that Ezo, gonna go ahead and get that search for the Whitebeard Pirate, and there we see Atmos, a really powerful new inclusion, I think, for the ace decks in sort of a reaction to the popularity of Boa Hancock, I think.
Yeah, definitely Atmos, a good card to be able to utilize. There's a lot of good forecasts in the game right now. Dracula Mihawk, though, primarily playing around 5, so may just be a nice counter card to be able to grab. Steel, though, grabbing a Law and Beppo on the Perona. Law and Beppo is going to be huge, right, with Ace playing these gigantic 10-drop blockers on the field that are very hard to get past without free value on the blocking. Law and Beppo is going to be an easy way to get around those, and so Ace now on the 3-Dawn turn is just going to swing 9,000 power lead, try to get this Dracula Mihawk down to 4, and he'll do exactly that going into Mihawk's 4-Dawn turn.
Yep, and this Ace deck loves having Dawn the leader whenever possible just to get those extra draws. I've seen some Ace decks draw plus 12 cards throughout a single game just by leader effect and the various cards they have in play alone, and it's beautiful to see.
Yeah, you would have liked to see maybe some searches on there, but at least getting a life, you cannot complain. Dracula Mihawk now swinging 6,000 power over at lead. We'll see if Ace tries to get rid of a card here or maybe takes a life to draw one card. It's kind of curious in the game of how early you try to take that first life and is going to go for it. Going down to 2 finds Jozu and Otama, double 2Ks.
Is that the Tashigi coming down?
Yeah, Tashigi from OP10, I believe it was, Punk Hazard Tashigi, is going to be able to get that protection effect on the different green characters on Dracula Mihawk's side, especially with Ace having a bit of removal potential with Atmos that we saw earlier, like Jozu, right? The 6-cost rare from OP08. Going to be curious to see as well how it's played out if he's going to play Atmos on this turn. So swing 7,000 power is going to go for a 2K, 1K, right, on there on the Perona and also the Zoro, and with that Atmos coming in, does have to reveal 2 Whitebeard Pirates there, so is going to reveal Jozu and Jozu to get that Tashigi back into the hand, but I think Steel pretty much expecting that because we searched for that Atmos earlier.
Also, with the reveal of that Rono Zoro in Steel's deck and the 5-drop that we saw him play in round 9, I believe it's safe to assume that he's on the Supernova version of the Mihawk deck. There are definitely a bunch of different variants going out around right now, but he's lost one to Tashigi and played another one from his hand there.
And so this Tashigi from OP14 is going to be so nice, right? Because has that built-in protection effect in case of any removal. So is going to use leader effect on the Perona to now swing 8,000 power with lead. 8,000 power generally is a good number to swing against Ace, right? Kind of commands 2 cards, either leader effect and a card or like a 2K, 1K in most situations. So is going to use leader effect on the Gold D Roger to minus 2,000 power on the Mihawk, make him a 6,000 power swing, and just 1Ks out of it with Yamato.
Yeah, the Mihawk deck is not known for playing that many blockers, so having cards like the Gold D Roger in hand just aren't seem worth it. Use it to stop an attack that would have brought you down to 1 life. Makes a lot of sense to me.
So now at 7, Jozu here wouldn't really be too impactful because Tashigi could protect itself, tapping that 1 Dawn that has been left open. We'll see, maybe he has some searches that he wants to do, but first, start out with maybe a 5,000 power Atmos swing.
If I'm not mistaken, Izu's base power is 2K, correct?
Izo's base power is 0.
Is 0?
Yeah, there is one with more power, but this one
the OG
specifically,
Whitebeard Pirates
yes.
one, yeah. So I was like, okay, so we're not going to attack into the Perona. Obviously, the Perona is pretty safe to be around and could be fodder for Mihawk's effects in the future.
And especially for Shane here, right, with no Coffin Boat on the field for a free leader effect, maybe getting rid of the Searcher on a swing could be valuable, but does not opt for it. Ends up playing Vista. Vista is a nice little card that we see every so often in these Ace decks.
Yes, it's definitely interesting to see how this deck has evolved from the original set of OP13, where it was clearly one of the most dominating decks, but now it's got so many different strategies it has to come up against that we're seeing the removal suite change, we're seeing the end game plan change, so on and so forth. I've seen decks cut 9-drop Whitebeard from OP02 because it's just not good enough anymore besides the 10-drop blocker.
And that Vista is going to be so dangerous, right? A 6-cost 8,000 power that has double attack.
Yeah.
So if Dracula Mihawk ends up taking a life, especially now that he's down to 3, it could go down pretty fast.
That's right. Remember, this is the final round for both those players. We don't quite know what their records are individually, but we do know that they're probably at least X and 1, meaning this could be a win and in, or this could be a way for them to guarantee their spot in day 2.
So finding that ShaneC on curve is going to use leader effect on the ShaneC. Is just going to go ahead and rest the Ezo right, because ShaneC only deals with base power of 7,000 power or less. Cannot touch that Vista, but is going to go ahead, use Tashigi to tap 2 more cards to be able to plus 2,000 power. Now the Tashigi is going to be 8,000 power through Shane's next turn.
Also, just for clarification, both of these players are undefeated as of round 10, meaning right now it could be one of their first losses.
So now really you're playing for seeding. You're playing for knowing in a best of 3 whether you want to start first or second right through the bracket. So
in this format, that's so important.
Yeah, a lot on the line, even when you're pretty much secured for top cut at this point. And so going with the swing, counters out of that one. And now the Tashigi going in with an 8,000 power swing.
Once again, we're just seeing the real power of the Mihawk deck, and honestly green decks in general. When they hit their curve, they feel so unstoppable, but the biggest weakness that maybe something like Ace or Emu doesn't have to worry about is your consistency. How often can you do this every single game?
And so now at 9, Don could go ahead and play the 10 cost Newgate if he's got the I Am Whitebeard event. Does have a Red Rock in hand that he's maybe looking to bottom deck ShaneC. Right, no Tashigi on the field. ShaneC would be able to allow this Vista to swing even higher, and he does. He goes in with that to be able to bottom deck the ShaneC. A lot of people say that, especially for Mihawk, is once that ShaneC leaves the field, it's really tough.
Yeah, because as we saw in the first game, it can easily snowball into an amazing amount of advantage and pressure, but if you stop that snowball from rolling, it's not going to get any bigger. And now we have the Vista coming in for 9,000, double attack, getting rid of 2 cards in the life. And we're going to be able to swing 8 with our leader once again. Like we said, the biggest weakness of Mihawk is going to be its lack of counter in spots like this, where you kind of have to stop it. Otherwise, you're in a really tough spot.
And even though there's 1 Dawn open left for the Dracule Mihawk, I think swinging 9,000 power with Vista to try to get that double attack is a huge deal right now. So is on this 8,000 power swing, gonna use Dead Man's Game for +3 and over counter a little bit with the 2K Tashigi.
Okay, yeah, so you can totally feel the pressure from Steel of being like, I have to stop this, and now I kind of have to deal with this Vista because it's really the only body that's threatening to go for game on the following turn. We have many of ways to deal with it. We can attack into it. We can play something like Beppo to stop it from standing up during the refresh phase. Looks like we're paying 9 here for this. Is that the secret rare Mihawk?
That is the secret rare Dracule Mihawk, and now using leader effect is going to be able to say that that Vista cannot attack in the next turn because of it's your turn when it is tapped. Now using leader effect, or I'm sorry, the Tashigi effect on the Perona and a Dawn to be able to make it an 8,000 power character. Now is going to swing 8,000 power over at lead. Is once again going to have to command 2 cards from this ace.
This Tashigi card from OP14 is another really huge selling point for Mihawk because it matches up so well into specifically Ace and Emu, being a natural AK body that you can just swing with every single turn and dodge all the pesky removal that normally would get rid of powerful cards like this. You love to see it.
So 2K, 1K is going to be the counter to go to 9. Now just swing 6 with Dracule Mihawk is trying to say, okay, give me another card out of this hand, and it is going to be a 1K Jozu.
Yep, so the one thing that the Ace deck is not the best at doing is sort of, you know, steamrolling a lot of pressure out of nowhere. Basically, what's in play is what you're going to be dealing with.
One thing I will say, though, is with that 9-cost secret rare Dracule Mihawk, a beautiful alternate art by Akira Gawa, by the way. Love that card. It is going to nullify this Vista the entire time it's on the field, and I think we see Round Table in the Ace's hand. That's been a while since you heard that card, you know?
Yeah, OP1 that card came out, and it's an amazing way to deal with pesky bodies like this Mihawk or like this Tashigi, where as long as you can attack over it, it's gone.
Yeah, minus 10,000 power if he wants to, would be able to pretty much get rid of anything with just a leader swing at it, I would assume, especially because everything would go down to 0 and Ezo would be able to at least swing at it.
That's right. Now, something to be worth noting here is that we will be giving up the potential of an Iron Whitebeard if that's in our hand, but I think it's worth it to deal with the pressure that Steel is representing with these powerful cards.
It's definitely scary. Maybe if he has like a Marco or something to be able to play down on the field on top of that, that could be a nice play, right? You would get that blocker. You would have that potential draw 3. You could try to stabilize, kind of controlling this board a little bit, even though, you know, we know that there's a lot in Beppo in the hand, so that's got to be a threat that you've got on your mind. But if the Mihawk was gone, then Law and Beppo would have to tap the either the Vista or the Marco, has to choose, and is going to go for that round table play, minus 10,000 power to the Mihawk, and we'll see how he decides to swing at it.
I don't think it's wrong to maybe put like a Dawn on the leader, because you're going to want one on there anyway, depending on what the rest of your hand is.
Yeah, definitely want to get that extra draw a lot of times on the leader effect, right? As if a 6,000 power or more character would get KO'd or you take a life, you get to draw an extra card once per turn. It's such huge value for this deck and one of the reasons why it is so good in this format. Yeah,
surely Shane has to be thinking, okay, I have a couple options here. If I commit to getting rid of this Mihawk, which you're kind of priced into doing because you use the round table, how much of my resources do I have to sacrifice to do so? I've already paid for Dawn to try to get rid of it and a card out of my hand. What else can I realistically sacrifice that doesn't put me in a bad position on the following turn?
One thing that he has to think about too is with the Law and Beppo in hand, if he decides to use the Izo to swing at this Dracul Mihawk, that exposes him to having another rested character on the field. And so with that Vista still there, if he used Law and Beppo to tap that Vista, that would fulfill the condition of having 2 or more rested characters for plus 2,000 power on Mihawk, making him that 7.
That's probably what he's thinking about, because as you know, that's a known card in both players' hands. And playing around that while also dealing with the answer of Mihawk just basically sacrifices all of Shane's tempo here. And Steel gets another turn of being at 1 life while probably pushing Shane to 0. And once again, Ace is not the best deck at closing out games in situations like this where our characters are not already in play.
So how much do you commit? Do you try to think of Spiderweb as well? A nice counter event that can restand the Dracul Mihawk?
That would be
like maybe he's committing with the Izo.
Yeah, that would be a killer swing. If you don't do enough that demands at least more than 4K and we get it back in the active position, so that way it doesn't matter if it's at 0 power or not, that's pretty rough.
Definitely have to decide if that's a risk you're willing to take within this game.
There we see the Dawn commitment. Never mind. It's a tough call. It's a tough call. And this is where these undefeated players may be showing why they deserve to be up here, is they're thinking through every single scenario that they could possibly have. They have 18 minutes on the clock, plenty of time to make these decisions that are make or break. And there we go. We're swinging 1K into, I believe, 1 or 0, if I remember correctly.
So it is going to go with that Dracul Mihawk effect to trash 1 card from your hand to minus 2,000 power somewhere to get out of the attack. Now we're going to swing leader at the Dracul Mihawk. Not too much that you can do about it, but you did force that Izo to come onto the field, and there's that Marco that I was talking about. You do have a Dawn on leader, but now you're exposed to Law and Beppo.
That's right. But which we did use as our discard there, so Steel's probably showing that I have another one, but the one that was known from Shane is now essentially in the trash.
Exactly, and so going to be curious. I think I saw it in his hand right there and a flash, so we'll see how fast he slams that down.
And normally when this Marco comes down, you know, oh, it's about to go crazy for Ace. But if there's any deck that can kind of dodge the Marco giving you infinite value when you draw 3 cards, it's going to be the Mihawk deck.
One of the things that he has to worry about, though, is maybe the Vista, right? Do you stun the Vista? Do you stun the Marco? Which one do you really go for, right? The Marco, as you're talking about, a huge card with the on-KO to draw a ton of cards. But this Vista's an 8,000 power character.
Yeah.
So it is going to be very dangerous in its own right, and definitely something you got to consider. Again, as you mentioned, still plenty of time on the clock in this best of 1, about 16.5 minutes.
Because we get the potential plus 2K, because the Izo is rested from the Lon Bevo, if we were to play it this turn, I could see Steel being, you know, reasonably happy with just trying to get as much damage through as possible on the 4-card hand that Ace is representing here. That Tashigi's going to demand a lot of it. Your leader's going to demand a lot of it, especially if it becomes a base 7, attach 1, swing another 8. It looks like it lines up pretty well to be able to go for game within these next 2 turns here, while also stopping Shane from being able to do so. Because when you have 1 life, double attack may as well just be regular attack anyway.
Yeah, especially when you will probably use leader effect to restand 3 Dawn right after you play the Law and Beppo. And it looks like with that all 10 is going with the Law and Beppo. Opts for the Vista.
Which I can also respect, because you're totally right. That is the biggest threat in play, and cards like Beppo and Law get rid of the biggest threats.
And so using leader effect on Law and Beppo to restand 3 Dawn still has the Tashigi effect that he has to utilize, and it looks like maybe is using the Coffin Bow right now to draw one card, kind of cycle the deck a little bit, and now using Tashigi to tap the Perona and the Coffin Bow for the 8,000 power swing.
Yeah, this still demands a lot. Obviously, Shane has a pretty easy block here, but if he does that, he loses all of his attacks. And so there's no way for him to realistically threaten Steel with his 1 life. And I don't care how many cards you have in your hand, this Lon Beppo swinging for 12K every single turn. That'll demand some cards.
We've seen throughout this tournament how board control can be so good, and this matchup right now is no different.
That's right. I mean, Mihawk is the king of like, oh, you get rid of my big guy? Here's another big guy. Deal with it.
Especially with all the stunning effects. You know, Law and Beppo, we saw the earlier in last round. I know you're strong, so I'll go from the very start. We saw the Perona OP14, lots of options. And it looks like Shane is opting for the block right here on this 8,000 power swing. Maybe he's thinking that Dracula Mihawk won't attach any Dawn onto Leader, but I could probably see an 8,000 power swing with Leader, so it really just depends on when you want to take this block.
And there's also probably an argument, too, that like if they do block here, maybe you just start swinging. Well, I guess it's a once per turn effect to get the draw, so maybe you still swing at lead no matter what here just to force cards out because they don't want to go to 0 when they can't draw off of it.
Yeah, you want to make them punish the hand with Leader effect if you can.
And you can always attack into the Vista next turn if stuff doesn't go your way.
Well, if you're auto stunning the Vista, he'll never restand.
That's a good point, too. This is a tough call here from Shane because he knows he loses his only attacker besides his Leader if he does this block. But he's going to get the 3 cards, and 3 cards and a dream, a lot can happen.
And that 3 cards, again, 2 for the on-KO effect on the Marco, and then 1 for that Dawn ×1 once per turn on the Ace Leader. Now another 8,000 power swing is going to have to command a Leader effect on the I Am Whitebeard and a 1K on the Yamato. Still not revealing too much in the pass of the turn. Restands 1 Dawn off Coffin Boat.
All right, now this is going to be another kind of make-or-break decision turn here for Shane because there's no real world where he can choose to go for game, so he has to do his best to control this board, but both the Tashigi and the Lon Beppo are just so gigantic that it might demand too many resources from Shane because, unfortunately, unlike Mihawk, most decks have to choose between allocating their Dawn and playing big cards. Mihawk gets to do both.
I think we have the 3 cards of I Am Whitebeard, the 10-cost Whitebeard blocker, and the 6-cost Uta from the Shanks starter deck. So that could be a 10-card combination that you could go with. It would give you 2 blockers, right, as well as the draw filter of the 10-cost Edward Newgate, so might be something that you do. We do see the I Am Whitebeard and the Edward Newgate come in to draw 2 and trash 1 as a big giant blocker. This card is so good.
Yes, this is probably one of the best cards to play off of the I Am Whitebeard, especially if you play it on 8, getting basically 20 Dawn, in theory, worth of cards over your 8 Dawn turn and your 10 Dawn turn, all of which are gigantic and have blocker. And here we see the Izo going after that Perona. No more free rests for Dracula Mihawk. Especially Shane's sick of it.
Yeah, especially with the Coffin Boat or the Tashigi and Leader effect. That's not a bad swing to do, especially because you don't have any more swings. You might as well try to get rid of it to make the numbers a little bit awkward if he wants to use both Leader effect and Tashigi. So does get that KO there. Now the 8,000 power swing from Ace will be coming, but where exactly do you try to go for the Tashigi ride with a potential 1K, or do you try to force a 2K from the 7,000 power base Dracula Mihawk? And then you still have 2 Dawn left open.
If that Uta blocker is in Shane's hand, his crossroads could be, do I commit this last 2 Dawn on my Leader to try to force as many cards out of my opponent by attacking the Tashigi, or do I just play this blocker, attack face, and try to set up a 2-turn go for game line here?
Especially because we've only seen 1 Dead Man's Game as a counter event. There is potential for another one within the hand, especially because he's got 2 Dawn up. There's a plethora of possibilities that could be in Dracula Mihawk's hand to be able to use this counter, but no, looks like he is going to commit and do a 10,000 power swing.
And it seems like it's going at life, too. Yep, he wants to force it to 0 as quick as possible. He knows that 1 blocker is basically the same as 2 most of the time against the Mihawk decks, because they have so many answers for blockers that it may as well just be, I need to set it up to where I can win the game and, versus not lose the game.
I think he's just kind of putting him on a clock right now.
That's
if Ace can get out of this turn, does Dracula Mihawk have enough counter with this Vista, with this Edward Newgate right on the field?
Another deck that doesn't have that many ways to rush what's in play is what you're going to be attacking with, but that's another really good Lon Beppo to see here, getting rid of that Edward Newgate blocker, getting back to a 7K base Leader, getting 3 Dawn back by resting the Coffin Boat, and now we have, in theory, resting the 2 cards here with the Tashigi to give it a +2 here, so we have 8, 12, and 7. Maybe we can go like 8, 8, 13. depending on how Shane chooses to counter out here. If he stops this one, we can just put the 8 on the leader and go 13 to end it all.
Yeah, we could go 8 onto the Dracul Mihawk. But first, we got to get out of this 8 from the Tashigi. No block available, and so is just going to take the first life, or take the first swing, I'm sorry, to draw 2. Did find a Charlotte Pudding there. That's a 1K, but is it enough? Now the Law and Beppo swinging.
So here we have the leader ability here, bringing it down to 11. Now we just need, I believe, 6K counter, because our base 6K leader. I think I see a 2K Jozu. There's a 2K Otama, so 4K remaining. There's another 2K Otama. All we need is one more, and I believe this attack is stopped. And we still have plenty of cards left. Is that a third? Oh, no, that's
the Charlotte Pudding. Yeah,
okay.
That's the tournament pack.
All right, we still need one more K, I believe.
So 8,000 power here is going to go ahead with Otama. Yes. Do we have another counter card? And we do with the Uta.
And is that Steel conceding because he knows he doesn't have enough counter to stop the attacks on the following turn?
I think so, yeah. I think that's how that went.
Wow, that is insane to see. It was probably a pretty tough call there for Steel to decide to go for game, and a probably even tougher call for Shane to decide kind of not to on the previous turn to kind of control the board. He's like, if I can stop you here, I can probably give myself enough time to win the game, and he did it.
And